forward-looking statement, basically saying anything I say, don't use that for your investing advice. I also determined that that's a way for our legal group to figure out how to fit over 1,700 words onto a single slide. So, we'll see. I bet next year it'll have even more words on it. If you'd like to advance. Okay, slide 3 here. This really is just some summary for the Mplx logistics storage segment for our Q2 results. You'll see pretty significant impacts due to COVID and the associated demand destruction. Obviously, refineries throughout the country were running at less or lower rates, and because of that, fewer refined products, less gasoline, less diesel, and exceptionally less jet fuel demand that we've seen throughout the country. As far as progressing projects, you can see there in the Permian Basin, we have several long-haul pipelines. Those continue to advance forward. So in the coming years, we anticipate those coming online. And then the last one, we enter the Western Wholesale Distribution business to MPC, really just simplifies Mplx one fuels distribution model. Next slide, please. So one of the things Mike Hennigan has really been stressing for Mplx is that we are on a path to free cash flow, and part of that is being very disciplined with our capital spending. You can see what we spent there in 2018 and 2019, so a very impressive year from a capital spending perspective. However, in 2020, you'll see a reduction of over $700 million. That includes both maintenance capital and then a big portion on the growth capital side. You will, however, see that those percentages have changed. So also part of our strategy is to continue to have focused investment more on the logistics storage side and less on the gathering and processing side. Next slide, please. Okay, so slide 5 kind of gets into the meat of the presentation here. And this is a similar slide that we've had for many years, but it kind of summarizes the significant long-term investments both Marathon Petroleum Company, the parent, and then Mplx, our master limited partnership, have made within the region. So if we go back in time, MPC completed condensate splitters at both the Canton Refinery, which was a 25,000 barrel a day condensate splitter, came online in 2014, and then Catlettsburg, which is on the Ohio River, had a 35,000 barrel a day condensate splitter come online in 2015. So significant investment in both refineries there, with a capacity combined there of 60,000 barrels a day. And then in addition, those refineries have some ability to run some condensate through the crude unit as well. On the GMP side, so with the MarkWest acquisition into Mplx, MarkWest is the premier leader within the Appalachian Basin gas processing. And then Mplx, we're offering transportation and storage solutions that involves pipe, truck, barge, and rail. I'll talk about some of that throughout the presentation. But really, if we think back, I mentioned Canton and Catlettsburg, but Marathon Pipeline has been bringing projects online since 2013. The first one, and one that I was very involved with, is called our Canton Crude Truck Unload. So initially it was 4 lanes where we were bringing in local production. We called it Canton Crude Truck Unload because we thought, like some of the producers, there was going to be crude produced. That has not so far really turned out to be true. It's light condensate material. But initially 4 lanes, and then we added on to that and ultimately built 8 lanes at the Canton Refinery as a way to bring condensate into the refinery. Since that time, in 2016, Marathon Pipeline built the 50-mile Cornerstone pipeline, which connects Cadiz, Scio, and Hopedale all to East Sparta, and then ultimately Canton. With that, there's obviously a lot less of a need for that truck unload because most of the barrels now can be piped into the refinery. But we've since been able to repurpose a portion of that for isobutane deliveries into the refinery. So we still use that asset. We still receive some condensate as well, but the majority of condensate to the refinery there just on the pipeline. We also then, in early 2017, completed something called our Utica build-out project. That was essentially getting connectivity not only within the basin, but further. So we repurposed the pipelines across Ohio. We added 50 miles of additional pipe and got connected into Lima. We reversed a system that runs between Lima and Robinson, Illinois, called our Rio pipeline. And we made some connections to other pipelines in Lima, including the Maumee and Buckeye systems, to provide connectivity to Toledo and to the Detroit refineries. And then we also expanded into the diluent market, so we used a pipeline to get those barrels up into the coast and other plant systems. And then here, within this past month, we completed a project called our Utica butane expansion. So it utilizes all those pipelines I just talked about, and we now have the ability to batch normal butane. And I have a slide where I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. And then, in addition, and per our strategy, we have used for additional pipeline projects that we can pursue if and when the time is right and when customers need those projects. But as I step back and kind of look at it, in 2016, MPL accelerated our pipeline project when kind of the rest of the industry, at least those competitive with our projects, they were deferring or cutting. And then in 2020, we continued. I talked about our Utica butane project. We continued to complete projects even though there were significant budget cuts, and I'll share that in the prior slide. Next slide, please. Okay, slide 6. Really, I just want to give a little education for everyone in the room as far as, okay, Canton Refinery is the largest refinery within the basin. Probably one of two. The other one over in Newell. It runs a significant amount of local production. We talked about the Cornerstone pipeline. We talked about Canton unload for isobutane. So there's a lot of production that's within the basin that makes its way to Canton. What Canton does then is they turn that into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and then they also make asphalt and propane. The pipelines shown on here are light product pipelines. So when Canton produces the product I just mentioned, they have a terminal right there at the refinery. The trucks can go, they can load up with gasoline and diesel and jet fuel and deliver it to local stations, local airports. But in addition to that, Mplx provides connectivity for those barrels to get to other markets. You'll see our Canton to East Sparta, there's actually two 60 pipelines that run there. And then from East Sparta, we can distribute either down to East, which is essentially the Columbus, Ohio market, or we have a system called East Sparta to Midland that can get barrels to the Midland light product terminal. Also, we have terminals at Steubenville and Youngstown. So you'll see that production is being produced locally, it's being consumed locally, and then it's also being distributed to neighboring markets within Northeast Ohio. Mplx is really helping provide that connectivity so that we can get to those various markets. Next slide, please. Okay, slide 7. This is the Utica map that we've been showing for years. In the bottom right-hand corner, it shows our Cornerstone pipeline. Again, that's built in 2016. It shows our green line from East Sparta to Heath, and then from Heath to Harpster, which for existing light products line that we expanded capacity and then added the ability first to move condensate and natural gasoline. Natural gasoline is really just low-octane gasoline. You primarily use either at refineries to blend in with higher-octane gasoline or sent to Canada as a diluent barrel. So blended up with heavy crude and then sent right back to refineries like Chicago or the Whiting Refinery or the Detroit Refinery. The Rio system, which runs between Lima and Robinson, that was reversed and expanded multiple times. And that system today is at full capacity and pretty much full utilization as well. So a pretty good story there. And then our Wabash pipeline that runs from Robinson north into the Chicago market, we've added the ability to move that natural gasoline on there to get used in the market. But really, what we're showing here is these assets, both new, they've all helped us kind of meet our strategy. First was the local market, the Canton Refinery, then the regional market for the 10 pet refineries, primarily there in the Midwest, and then ultimately those other pipelines that get sent back to Western Canada. If you kind of summarize it in the whole, built approximately 110 miles of new pipelines. We repurposed, expanded, and reversed around 400 miles, and in total to date, and this includes the Utica Butane project getting ready to speak about. We've invested approaching $1 billion in pipeline investments to connect the Utica and Marcellus shale to all these various markets. And then again, we have additional potential projects which we may pursue when the time is right and expand there. Next slide, please. Okay, so I mentioned Utica Butane expansion. This is a project that we fully commissioned in the beginning of September. And really what we did is we took all those existing assets and we made them able to also batch normal and isobutane. So those same systems that are moving Utica condensate, natural gasoline from Hopedale and Scio, and some of them even also move gasoline, move diesel fuel. They now also can batch normal and isobutane. And really the goal here is to get this to refineries. Our refineries blend butane in with their gasoline stream, especially in the winter, when the RVP season has a different requirement. And then isobutane is good feedstock for creating higher octane gasoline materials. Also, several years ago, Mplx completed a 1.4 million barrel butane cavern at Robinson Refinery. So a way to fill some barrels into that cavern. Mplx also has a set of caverns up in Woodhaven, Michigan, pretty close to Detroit, and those are connected via the Buckeye system from Lima. So again, a very creative way. Now this is a significant investment. You see the sphere on the page. I believe this one's at Lima. But we built 2 of these at East Sparta, one for isobutane, one for normal butane. We did the same thing at Lima, 2 spheres like this, and then we made upgrades throughout our pipeline systems, seals and valves, so that we could safely and reliably include isobutane and normal butane within the systems. I'll say, as one who had to meet with our executive team many years ago, it feels good to see this come to fruition, because this was something we talked about as upside and potential in the future, but it does help the overall economics for our project as we continue to add additional commodities. And then the second half of this slide, ORPL expansion. ORPL stands for Ohio River Pipeline. If you think back to that map, we have a pipeline that runs from East Sparta to Heath and then Heath to Harpster. Really what this involves is adding a pump station on that system so that we can increase capacity of that pipeline. And this is slated for second half of 21 in service. Again, just a pump station. It leverages all our prior systems, but it increases the capacity and allows us to ship even more of these commodities from the Utica shale to the various business partners and customers we have at the RVP. Next slide, please. So in this slide, you'll see the bullets on the left, and I took back to our 2015 presentation, and interestingly, the words are tweaked a little bit on some of them, but these are the same bullets we've had. So these have really been what's driven us, and they've proven to be the success of our strategy within the Utica shale. Being the first liquid pipeline with the Cornerstone line, providing that flexibility for customers, being flexible for seasonal needs. Pipelines are the safest means of transportation of all, even though all those methods are needed. Completing in phases, so we've been adding capacity as needed, and then the additional projects as needed. And then the graph on the right, and I was not allowed to include actual volumes, to protect shipper information. But really, the way to think about that, the time kind of starts in 2016 on the left. The right-hand side is 2020, and then the volumes we obviously can't share, but that is an exact replica of what volumes have done. And I will share that even through a demand destruction environment and COVID, we've continued to see increased volume throughout our systems of all commodities, condensate, natural gasoline, especially for the diluent market, and then now with the isobutane and normal butane movements. So this one continues to perform well for Mplx, even in the current economic environment. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the big one Joe was setting me up for. And this is a slide that's similar to one that we had a presentation on last year at the Appalachian Storage Hub Conference. So really, what I'm talking about here and what I talked about then is the potential for a Hopedale NGL cavern project. I will mention that we recently entered into a project development agreement with Boardwalk Utica Midstream and 33 Resources. So those are partners that we're developing this project. But what we're saying and what we've identified to date, because we have done some geological coring, we believe there's space at all caverns directly at Hopedale, and each with up to 500,000 barrels of storage. That storage could be used for Y-grade, so a mixture of propane, butane, kind of those lighter ends. It could be for purity propane, purity butane, or isobutane, ethane to support the crackers in the region, or ethylene as well. We still continue to believe this is the best option for an NGL cavern within the basin, primarily due to the given pipeline connectivity. If you look on there on the right-hand side, you can see all the various pipelines that already run through or are connected to Hopedale. So it gives the ability to connect to all those pipelines without really much additional investment because they already run through and are already connected to Hopedale. And that includes the Shell Falcon ethane pipeline, which supports their cracker plant that's getting ready to come online. And then I'll say that the timing, the timing is obviously dependent on customer commitments, and that's really what we're working on with our partners, trying to identify those customers that have the interest and are willing to commit to making mutually beneficial projects. Next slide. All right. So my last two slides, and I typically have a couple in here, are really just to help educate the audience so that you can all be advocates for our very noble and respectable industry. I'd say there's a lot of misinformation and negativity around our business within the news. And sometimes I get defensive. I have kids. I have a freshman in high school. I have an 8th grader. I have a 5th grader. So they hear various things, and sometimes you have confusing questions. But what I try to employ to them is our industry, it improves the daily lives of people throughout the U.S. And that's important. But what you don't hear in the news, what I think is probably the most important, is those people in developing countries, our industry keeps them alive. They're not going to survive on solar panels or wind turbines or things like that in developing countries. It takes the commodities that we're involved in daily to help keep those people alive. And for that reason, it is a very noble industry. You might say, okay, well, why? Well, the reason, petroleum and natural gas, they have some advantages over, some of the renewables. Those being, they're available, they're affordable, they're reliable, and they're transportable. I shared some of that a couple years ago, but they continue to have those advantages and will continue for some time. The other thing, as you look at this slide, you'll see, okay, this is the EIA information. On the left is 2010. This is total U.S. energy consumption. If you add up the fossil fuels, it's about 83% between natural gas, between petroleum and coal. If you move to 2019, when all the news is about renewables, all the news is about solar, wind, biofuels, etc., you'll see that the fossil fuels still are 80% of the energy needs. And I don't know if anyone's been in California or lived in California lately, but the news there is they basically made poor decisions and tried to quickly go to solar and wind, and they found out that when it gets really hot and people really need their AC to work, they did not have enough in the way of, call it, power plants that could supply their energy needs. I know it's probably a little bit small to read, so I talked about the 8% fossil fuels, but in the grand scheme of things within the United States, solar produces about 1% of the total U.S. energy needs. Wind produces about 2.5% of those energy needs. And again, I'll get back on, I feel all forms of energy are needed. I feel certain investments within renewables, and we do as well. Ethanol is a biofuel. Marathon has several biofuel refineries. So we're obviously very invested in that as well. But I do want you all to understand the importance and significance of fossil fuels now, and they will continue to be very important in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, and here everyone thinks of fossil fuels as, oh, well, that's where I get my electricity from, or that's where I get my gasoline or diesel fuel for my my vehicle. But petroleum products are a lot more than just transportation fuels. They help grow our food, they heat our homes, pave our roads, and really have the basis for almost everything. I would challenge almost anyone in the room to say, try to live one day without fossil fuels. I don't think hardly any of us could make it, because whether it's our iPhones, our computers, our vehicles, our clothing, all of it, it has fossil fuel derivatives and petroleum products to help make those materials. So again, I kind of started the prior slide. This slide I'll end it. I just really challenge everyone in the audience to help educate friends and families about the importance of our industry, and to do it in a respectable manner. I think that's sometimes the issue is people have strong opinions, but we're not always respectful of everyone.